The national debt is insane, dude. It's like over $31 trillion, which is basically the size of our entire economy. I'm Jack, and with me is Jillian. We're talking about the national debt's unforgiving math. Imagine you're making $100 a year, and you owe $100 with a 2% interest rate. If you get a 4% raise, you're golden, but if the interest rate flips to 4%, you're in trouble. We concluded that the combination of higher deficits and climbing interest rates raises the risk that borrowing will become more expensive and will push government debt levels to climb relentlessly. This is a debt spiral. Now let's say your annual income and debt are both $100, and you face a 2% interest rate, but you get a 4% raise. You'll have no problem paying your creditor their $2 in interest from your $4 in added income. But if you swap those rates around, every year puts you further in the hole.
It's crazy, right?
Events of the past few weeks reveal that the problem of rising interest rates is not theoretical. President Trump's war in Iran, which is putting upward pressure on inflation, has led lenders to insist on extra compensation, that is, higher interest rates, to offset inflation's erosion of the value of future payments. Based on the wide gulf between our spending obligations and our expected tax revenues, debt investors also know that the government will have to issue trillions of dollars in debt in the coming years. And with all of that debt flooding the market, the government will have to offer higher rates to keep its creditors in the game. Those pressures don't just show up as higher interest rates on government debt, because banks use rates on government debt as a benchmark for the interest rates they charge. The price of borrowing on mortgage, auto, business, and home improvement loans goes up for everyone. People tend to think of affordability exclusively in price terms, as in the cost of groceries. But research confirms that the price of borrowing is very much a cost of living variable. I'm skeptical about the government's ability to manage this debt, given their track record with intelligence agencies and spending. Last week's deep dive into the NSA's budget was eye-opening, and I think we need to apply that same scrutiny to the national debt. Creditors are already insisting on higher term premiums, meaning higher compensation in the form of higher interest rates when they buy our debt. Higher rates mean higher debt service, and the net interest is already the fastest growing part of the budget, which means we're on the edge of a troubling feedback loop. That's the math problem. And there's the political problem. As we discussed in a past episode, politicians have come to see deficit spending as a way to deliver goods to their donors and constituents. This has ensured that fiscal irresponsibility generates solid political benefits at no political cost. Any politician who runs on reducing the deficit, who insists that Americans must now accept some combination of spending cuts and higher tax payments, will be at a sharp disadvantage against an opponent who claims that no tax hikes or spending cuts are needed. Who can resist a plan for eating ice cream all day without ever gaining a pound? A political platform that's both fiscally and politically responsible starts by pointing out that decades of tax cuts have put us on an unsustainable path. Moves to try to offset these cuts by taking away essential health and nutritional support for the poor are not only shameful, they also promise to exacerbate the affordability crisis and stark inequalities that are already plaguing economically vulnerable families without making much of a difference to the budget. We need to start thinking about how to tax wealth if we want a fair and sustainable budget. Polls show that most Americans view the fact that rich people don't pay their fair share as evidence that the system is rigged. In the Biden administration, they proposed a tax on high-end, unrealized capital gains. Lawmakers who wish to tax wealth may worry about alienating the donor class, But this is an essential way to increase revenues at a time when high-end wealth accumulation appears to be accelerating. Unfortunately, the politics of getting the United States on a sustainable track are miserable. With the midterms around the corner, I am certainly not suggesting that Democrats now run as the party of fiscal responsibility and eating your spinach. Even economists have to weigh fiscal discipline against threats to democracy and the rule of law. If we're smart about it, we can at least begin to move closer to a more sustainable path under the principle that when you're in a hole, step one is to stop digging. So what can we do? We can start by understanding the relationship between short-sighted fiscal policies and ballooning household costs. Let's drop a comment below and share this with a friend. It's time to wake up and smell the coffee, folks.